Purchasing and owning vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online is not always about having the best weaponized vehicle, the wildest drift car, or the fastest car to get from point A to point B. With the world of Los Santos still to this day being one of the most beautiful open worlds I have ever played a video game in, sometimes it's about the journey and taking in the sights along the way, both of the beautiful world that Rockstar has given us and of the vehicle we are driving in, as it's easy to get caught up with grinding or missions or just pure chaos in GTA Online. Sometimes a well-deserved break is needed with a classic European sports car. And a little pit stop never hurts either as we take in the sunset over the military base. Perfect example of a perfect day made even better with a perfect vehicle, which is why I am very excited to review and customize the Ardent based on the Lotus Esprit 1990s model, which in my opinion is the most underrated and overlooked vehicle in the game. But today, we're going to take a closer look at the Lotus Esprit, aka the Ardent. This is the Ocelot Ardent based on the Lotus Esprit, the second vehicle in the game based on the Esprit, as we have the Stromberg, which is based on the first generation 1970s model from the James Bond movies, classic back in the day where it turns into the submarine. And this guy is based on the last generation in the 1990s, which came with a twin-turbo V8. Always loved the more boxier design and the lines on these classic 90s supercars, as well as how small they were. A few interesting design cues is these cutouts or these little rear windows behind the windshield for the driver and passenger. Coming around to the back, we have these lines on these fins on the sides of that engine cover with those rear vents, as well as some boxy taillights and a boxy rear bumper. One thing I really like about this car compared to the Lamborghinis and Ferraris of its time is it's not as loud or as in your face. It's more under the radar and a bit low key. And we can see those front machine guns on the sides of the license plate between the turn signal indicators. And moving up, we have the pop-up headlights, which I always have a weak spot for. Beautiful power bulge on the hood, some vents, really sleek aerodynamic windshield, still has that 90s style. And my favorite part has to be this sunroof, which very few vehicles have. So let's jump in. We know that Rockstar nailed it on the looks department. Let's see what we can do for modifications as we get a view through that sunroof up top. Check out these pop-up headlights as the car wakes up and says, "Hello, I'm ready to go." Let's take it to LSC, customize this bad boy, and then see what it has for performance.
Here for the magic touch.
All right, let's see what we can do to this British Lotus, starting with some race brakes, of course, as always.
60 to 0 in like 2 seconds.
Moving on to the bumpers, starting with the front bumper, just a handful of options here. Can do a secondary color, a sport bumper, which gets rid of those square fog lights. Can get that in secondary, or a tuner bumper. And I do like that quite a bit. Can get that in secondary as well. Going from the stock to the sport, it definitely becomes a lot more modern. But I think I will go for the tuner as it's a good in-between for modern and classic. So we'll throw that on. Moving to the rear of the vehicle, for the rear bumper, only one option with a classic bumper, which puts a cutout dead center with some mesh. And also it makes it less wide, so I will stick with stock for the rear. Moving on to the engine, we've got two options here, starting with the engine tunes. Brings us back to the rear as it is a mid-engine car. Level 4.
That'll boost the torque.
Also can do the engine cover. A few options here. Can do a smooth cover, gets rid of those vents. Dual vented if you want the square style. Can do a tuner cover. Wow, half a square on that. That is interesting to say the least. Can do a custom exposed engine. If you want a American hot rod style on your British Lotus, can do chrome exposed or secondary exposed engine. Interesting choice there. And the only other option that caught my eye was the dual vented cover. Comparing that to stock, however, I do like how this is the same color as the car, and it's definitely more streamlined. So again, we will leave that as is. See what we can do for the exhaust. Only one option. Wow. Rockstar really did not give us many options for this car. Can go with an oval. And again, we still get the backfire with the stock, so I will leave that as is. See what we can do for the fenders. Only two options. Man, I forgot how few options there are on this. Okay, so plastic is a no-go. Or secondary. So literally no new designs. Can only change the colors. That is disappointing. Once again, we will leave that alone. Check out the options for the hood. So we can do a smooth hood. Oh man, it gets rid of the power bulge and the vents. That's no good. Can do a vented hood. Similar design as on the rear, back on the engine cover. Dual vented. Can do a sport hood. Has a bit of an inset with that vent. Tuner has the dual vents. We've seen that style on a few other vehicles. Or the deep vented hood. Well, doesn't take me a second round of looking at those to say I will stay with stock again. Can do xenon lights, but I do like the stock lights. They are a hyper white, so we'll leave that alone. Before we go to the back of the vehicle, check out this front European style license plate. I do not think there's any other vehicles that have that. You guys will have to let me know down in the comments below if there are any other cars that have the Euro plate. For this one, I think we'll go with High Life and probably leave it for the blue on white too. I think that'll go well with the finished design of the vehicle. All right, let's check out the Ardent in a few different colors. Looking very pristine and clean. Look at that Ocelot logo with the pop-up headlights in ice white. Very good choice for this car, as the 70s style Esprit in the classic James Bond films, the submarine car was in that vintage white. So definitely a good choice. Of course, we've got to show it off in a classic British racing green or the dark green in GTA Online. I think playing around with the pearlescence, you could get a really good design with the dark green on the Ardent. As for me, I'm going to go with a classic red, as this is the color that James May drove a Lotus Esprit in the same style, same 90s Esprit in my favorite car show, Top Gear. So always remember it from that episode, and going to go with the classic red on this build. And let's check out the options for the spoiler. Again, only a handful of options. We can go with a classic spoiler, tuner spoiler, which is more of an aftermarket style wing. Can get that in secondary as well. So for me, it's going to be between classic or none. And I do like this classic spoiler. I like the design. Looks very OEM. I like how it arches down at the sides, so we'll throw that on.
Now that's a custom job.
And how low can she go? Let's find out on the suspension. Let's just drop this guy. On the count of 3, see how much it slams in 1, 2, 3. And I will take that. Closes up the wheel gap and looks just about right. Go with the sport suspension. Transmission, yes, let's get some faster shift points with the super transmission. Beef up those twin turbos a bit with some turbo tuning.
Oh, she'll hit warp speed now.
When it comes to these classic 90s supercars, you can never go wrong with a classic 5-spoke rim. So under sports category, I believe it's towards the bottom here. That's a bit too modern. There it is, the Wangan Master. We'll throw that on. For the wheel color, you can't go wrong with black or a stone silver, even a frost white if you want something a little bit more on the loud side, which is not a bad option at all. But I think I will keep this alloy for a more OEM classic look. And last up is the windows. If we want to tint these, we have all of our options for light, dark, and limo. There's the little square rear windshield, which I love on this car. And it's going to be between none or light smoke. And look at that. That little panel, that glass panel on that little rear window gets tinted as well. That's pretty cool, actually. So I think I will go with the light smoke. And that is all 20 options for customization. And unfortunately, out of all the vehicles I've reviewed and customized, I think this is the one with the least amount of options for the customization. However, being such a classic vehicle and being designed so close to its real-life counterpart, I'm willing to overlook that and take it as the classic that it is, being able to put on the rims we want, the paint jobs we want, the spoiler if we want it or not. So unfortunate that it has very little customization, but it's still a beautiful sports classics car that I love having in my collection. Let's take the Ardent outside and check it out in some more detail. Nice day up here at the observatory as we check out the details on this little Lotus. Open everything up. First thing I saw instantly is this spare wheel in the front storage in that front hood. How cool is that? Again, I can't think of any other vehicles that have a spare tire, spare wheel in the actual hood. I know there's others you can put it on the outside of the vehicle, but that is definitely a very cool detail. Again, that front European style plate. Really like the angles on these doors, very 90s as we move back to the rear of the vehicle with that rear motor cover lifted up. Let's check out this motor. I can see that Ocelot lettering already. Oh yeah, not bad. It's a smaller motor, but there's a little storage right behind it. That's pretty cool. Not too bad. There's the door panels. That's really cool. That design is very unique. It's got some speakers on there by the roll-up windows, like that two-tone with that gray and black. Let's go ahead and hop inside as it's looking really clean. Let's get a look at the car real quick from that angle, as I just love the lines on this. And as we hop in, got the Ocelot logo on the steering wheel dead center. Too bad that the steering wheel is blocking those gauges a bit. Got that radio. Really like this dashboard. Really sleek. The angle of it, very clean. And behind us is the rear windshield with the heat defroster. Very cool. So then, does the Ardent have the performance, the driving experience to back up the looks? This is rear-wheel drive, but unfortunately it does not drift well. As the engine is in the rear, it's a mid-engine car, which keeps it to have a lot better traction. Speaking of traction and handling, this is top 10 around top speed in the sports classics category, as well as third for handling around a track. The unfortunate thing is that you cannot use this car in races because of those front machine guns, which is very unfortunate. But for driving in the open world, this thing does cut corners very well, and it's very balanced. So as we do start attacking these corners, it's very neutral. You can really feel it on these mountain roads where it does not oversteer, it does not understeer, it just turns to its capability, which is very good. I have had this car for a while. I got another one to do the customization from the get-go. But the driving experience is very fun to take out for a spin. Combine that with the classic 90s looks, the lines on this car, and I would say you should definitely think about owning one of these for your classic sports car collection. And as we get back to the city, let's do a top speed test. I believe this is right around 118 miles per hour, which is not bad at all. So let's see what it's got on this downhill as we almost lose it on that curb, cutting through traffic. Very nice. Handles those jumps, getting air very well. Very, very stable vehicle. I think that's the takeaway. Is it's very balanced, it's very neutral, and it's very stable, which makes it a very enjoyable car to drive. A lot of times, though, it's just as satisfying to take in the sights and drive at a slower pace in these classic sports cars. Let's get a look at these pop-up headlights as the car wakes up. That's always one of my favorite features on these older cars. And I'm sure there's going to be a few of you who still want to see the machine guns built into this. And just keep in mind, I would not buy this for a weaponized vehicle, as you have the JB700W, which has the built-in machine guns, and you can drop slick mines, EMP mines, all that stuff, as well as the Night Shark. There's tons of other vehicles with much better weaponized capabilities. However, due to the reason for testing and experimentation, let's let her rip. As you can see, it is really not worth using this vehicle for these machine guns. That is just way too long to make any sense whatsoever. So, weaponized vehicle, definitely not worth it. But for a classic sports car, 100%. Cannot recommend this car enough. So, should you buy one? Should you buy the Ocelot Ardent? If you're looking for a new weaponized vehicle, definitely not. As we saw, those machine guns are absolutely useless. You're better off getting out of the vehicle and using a weapon on foot. However, if you are looking to add a beautiful sports classics car to your collection, 90s design, if you're a fan of the Lotus Esprit, or if you want to own a piece of history of pedigree from UK motorsports from Lotus, you are not going to be disappointed with the Ardent, as it is very fun to drive. It is very neutral. It's very balanced. You can throw it over hills, off jumps. It doesn't oversteer. It doesn't understeer. It just goes, which makes it a pleasure to drive and a pleasure to look at while taking in the scenery. That is going to do it for this video. That is everything you guys need to know about the Ocelot Ardent. As always, thanks for tuning in. Always a blast to review these cars. And until the next time, you guys stay cool, keep on playing GTA, and I will see you guys very shortly in the next video. For now, H2TV is signing out.